Okay, this is part 2 of learning activity 8. We set up a database in the first part, and now we're going to set up some unit tests here. So let's first try to create a unit test for this read trade data. One of the things we're going to learn hopefully here is that the way we have this, although we have broken this up in procedures or methods, it's still very hard to unit test for this. We have these private methods, and if I right click on or click on that private method and say create unit test, it'll say I can't create unit tests only on public classes or public methods. This is a private method, and most of our methods are private, and we want them to be private only here, and we can't create unit tests on them. So eventually we're going to want, the next part of this chapter is we're going to break these up into, put interfaces here and break these up into actual separate classes. And if you remember the single responsibility principle, it says that each class should do only one thing, not each method. So here we have methods doing, we've at least broken this up so that we have different methods that do different things, one thing only. But we're going to break those up into separate classes later on. That'll be next unit. So for now, we're going to keep trying to do unit tests to see some more issues with that. So here's our one method that is public is our process trade. So that's where we have to set up our tests initially. So we're going to go there and say create a unit test. We can leave this all the same. Now right now I see there's just one project over here, my single responsibility principle project. Now it should go through and create another project, a test project here. So here it is. I'm going to actually close this for now. And here's my test project, and there's this trade processors.test here with a test class and test methods here. So that's what I have. Now I'm going to add some stuff to it. Now in order to do these trade processes, we're going to have to add a routine because again, all we can do basically is call our process trades, and we give it a stream. So we have to have a text file and give it a stream, and then it's going to go through and read those data files and process those and store those in the database, and we don't get any outputs from this. All we can see is the database. So we can only do this whole method, and we give it a stream and it puts things in the database. So in order to even test, have anything to measure, we're going to have to look at the database and see. And we can't stub out this database because there's no way to stub out the database. We actually have to use a real database in our code, and the only one we can use is this one that's set up with this connection string here for this. So there are some issues with this. So we have some sample code. You can get to it here or here. Both it brings you this stuff, and I've written a nice little routine here called count database records, and so we're going to grab that routine here, and eventually I'll grab the rest of this, but I'm just going to grab this for now, one part at a time. And inside trade processor, inside the class, but before we get to the methods, I'm going to paste this in here, count database records. So let's set this up and try to get to work. It's going to try to connect to our database here, and count how many records are in the database, execute that query, and return that. So all it does is count how many records are in the database and return it. So it's count database records. Now there's some issues here. It's initially showing that the data, this system.data is not found and this connection string is not found. So we have to add some references here. To close this up again, I'm going to go here and go to references, add references, and system is added. I want to make sure that system.data is also added. So I'm going to add that here. And that should get rid of this system.data. Now this connection string here, I don't have it using system.data up here, and this I'll need that for this. So there should be a shortcut here that'll let me say using system.data, and that'll add it up here. This SQL command needs even more specific thing, system.data.sql client. So I need to add system.data and system.sql client, or .data.sql client up above for this to work here. Now we do have to modify this. I'd forgotten to change this connection string, and we want to use the same connection string we use in our database or our other things. So I'm going to go back to trade processor and just grab this Azure connection string here and bring that over here and define that here. So we're using the same connection string for that. Okay, now I'm going to using and declare a variable connection string here, and then this whole connection string in here I'm going to get rid of like that, and I'm just going to use this Azure connection string. So in general, most systems will have a way. I'm going to delete this comment out version here too. Most companies will have some way of managing connection strings or connection to databases. We won't hard code them in like this, but we're just doing that here. They'll often be defined in a separate static area or something like that. Okay, so or properties. So we're using our Azure connection string here. Now we may run into problems with this connection open. Right now it looks like, especially with Azure, this check doesn't seem to work, but we'll leave it here for now. Here. Okay, now, so we've got our connect database. Now we're going to do our actual method. Right now we have one method and it just fails. I'm going to just comment that out for now so that it'll at least pass. And then I'm going to grab this other method here, this test method. Copy that out and paste that in here. Oops, in my test area. So let's look at this, what this test does. First, it has to get a text file and make it into a stream, and that's what this does. This assembly is defined in system.reflection, so I have to make sure that's included. So I have system.data, system.data.sql client, and system.reflection now being used. Okay, so that'll get rid of that error. Now it's going to open up this a file in my folder, single responsibility principles tests dot, and right now it's set to goodtrades.txt. So I don't have that file here because I just created this folder. I'm going to grab this trades one and just copy or move it down here, and it'll copy it and it'll put it down here. Here it is, trades.txt. I'm going to just rename that. And we can create a bunch of different files for good trades and bad trades. I'm going to have one for a single good trade, good trades one, let's say. That'll just have one trade. So I'm going to delete most of these out of here. And let's just make some rounder numbers here. So a lot size of 100 and price of $1, and that, okay, and I just want one empty line there. So I've saved that. So it's called Good Trades 1. So I'm going to make sure this should be my test folder, and Good Trades 1.txt is my file here. So now it should open up that file, hopefully. It creates a trade processor, and then it calls count databases up here, counts how many records are in the database. It then processes that trades with this stream that we created from our text file. It'll then counts the databases afterwards here, and then we should run. Now right now I'm going to run this. It's going to fail. Let's see, because it has 4 there, but we'll talk about that. Let's just run this and see how it works. So I should run all the tests. My test explorer should pop up here. So my test explorer is popping up over here. Let's make this a little bigger. And so my process trades test, which I don't have anything in, passed because it doesn't do anything, but my test, a normal file test, fails. If I click on that, I can look down here at the error, and it should tell me why it's failing, and it looks like it is actually having trouble with a connection. So it is having a connection. The connection is not closed, and I'm trying to open it here. For this. And again, this seems to be an error with this stuff here. So to get rid of that, just comment out the connection open. I think the connection just stays open when we create it here. So I don't think we actually need any of this stuff here. So we'll run this test again, go to the Server Explorer, run our tests again. And again, I think it's still going to fail. Still failed, but now hopefully for a different reason. Assert failed, that's better. Expected and actual, it found 118 records in our database. Again, we're using this shared one out there, so we keep adding to record to this Azure database, and the actual was 115. So we expected more records than were out there. And the reason for that is I didn't modify my tests. In my file, I just added one record. And so here, when I count the records before, after, I should compare the count after should be equal to the count before plus, in this case, 1. So now if you are adding bad records, like an incorrect record or whatever, you will probably don't expect this to change at all. So sometimes you want to check if count before equals count after. If I'm adding 10 records in here, 10 trades, I should expect count before plus 10 to be equal to count after. Okay, so now I have that set up. Now in the assignment, you're going to have to do more trades. Oops, I ran this instead of run the tests. Sorry, what was I thinking? Okay, let's run these tests again. You're going to have to create more unit tests here. And it's okay if some of the unit tests fail as long as you expect them to fail and you know why they're failing. So here now everything's passing here for this test here. And so and you're going to, again, we have limited options for this test. So you're probably going to have to follow this process of setting up a file, reading from a text file here. Counting the records in the database before, running that file through, and then counting the records afterwards and comparing them and seeing that. So that's how you set up unit tests here. So let's go back to this. So we made a unit test for this, and we're using that methods. Now for the assignment, you have to set up some more unit tests, and some, like we did this one. I have a list of some ideas now. Read in a file with one good trade. Result is one trade added to the database. You could try 10 good trades. What if you had a file with no trades in it, basically an empty file? That should be no new trades added to the database. So what if the file doesn't exist? Is it generate an exception or something like that? What do you expect? Right? Again, some of these you can have just fail and we can fix them later. What if you have a bad trade database? So again, you can look at your trade databases here. What if we had a trade? Right now we have 3 arguments separated by commas. What if we only had 2? What if we only had 4 different number of arguments? What if we had 8 letters here? What if this was numbers instead of letters? What was this? What if this was a number instead of a letter, or this? And again, some of these we have code in there to handle them already. If you remember, in trade process, we have a validate trade. So we do check if there are 3 fields in our database. We check if our string is 6 characters long. We check if we can parse this as an integer or parse this as a decimal. So we do some error checking. So some of these should pass and just ignore those trades, which is good. But other things, like if we pass in like a negative value for the lot size, a negative value for the price, those will probably go through, but I don't think they should. Those should be illegal trades for that. So, and those are stuff that you could then go in here and add checks for, so the test would initially fail, but then later on you can adjust the code, write a use case, adjust the code, and set this up so the tests then pass here. So again, those are some different unit test cases that you can keep adding on. So again, back here in our test stuff, this is our one test for our normal single trade file, and you'll probably want to add more tests to this. Okay, good luck with this.